The round 5 game between Fabiano Caruana with the white pieces and Magnus Carlsen here in the World Chess Championship. All the games were drawn so far, and Fabiano with the white pieces obviously can expect, with the move e4, can definitely expect c5 from Magnus now. It's not a secret. I'm just still a little bit surprised.
Still surprises me that he keeps repeating it when he has so many other weapons in his arsenal.
He really does. He's trying to make a point here or something, but it's been working pretty well. Obviously, he got his best winning chances with it, and he's never looked to be in serious trouble. As you pointed out, this is where we saw the first deviation from Fabiano, as bishop takes on c6 was the choice in the previous games. And after castle, bishop g7, rook e1, we do see a completely different approach where it looks like he's not intending to take the knight and instead maybe even keeping the option.
Sometimes you tuck the bishop in and you play for c3 and d4.
Right.
That's possible. They came up with something a little bit different. Different structure. If you're not taking on c6, you're playing a totally different position.
Right. Now, he does reserve the option to transpose in some lines, but based on what Magnus played, e5, you have to be a little careful what moves you play here. I think what we were discussing, one thing you pointed out, which is pretty instructive, is if you just make really sort of normal, seemingly good developing moves, maybe stop bishop g4, castle, maybe white plays bishop e3, and all of a sudden knight d4 can happen, and this bishop is stranded out there. Black can think about playing h6, king h7, and just f5, and you look at white's position and you say, where are the breaks? I mean, what's going on here? So black has a very easy game plan, and that's one way that Fabiano was certainly not going to play, but just for you guys, easy to fall into by playing seemingly pretty natural moves.
Yeah, it's an ambitious setup from Magnus to take the space. So Caruana responded here with something ambitious himself. A sideline that apparently some people know, but still fairly new to me. b4, challenging this, challenging the setup. Immediately asking some questions.
This is, I think, a move that is pretty thematic, not necessarily in this position, but a lot of people are familiar against the French defense, against the Sicilian, this idea of the wing gambit. Even, we go back to like the Owens, which is pretty much the main b4 opening. We've all seen this type of sacrifice. If pawn takes, we want to play it sort of like a Benko, where we just get all this activity, and a sample type of position might be something like this, where you just plant that bishop there and say that with the pressure and pins going on along with knight d5, that this might be a serious issue for Magnus to deal with. So he didn't want to go for anything too crazy, and I say that, of course, he does accept the pawn sacrifice. It's not one that you can really decline. I mean, the pawn on b4 simply has to be taken.
Yep.
So bishop b2 seems logical. You played a6. If knight c6, I think we would just take and grab this pawn on e5, which is probably a position that...
Well, we've just recovered our material and gained development as a result, because black's knight is still on g8, so yeah.
a6, a3. Basically, in the opening, I think Fabiano was playing much faster than Magnus, although for someone in Magnus's position who seemingly is supposed to be surprised by this b4 move, I did think he was playing pretty fast himself. I would...
yeah, he's definitely seen it. You
Yeah.
just can't play that quickly.
Yeah. Yes, chess bender. That's what I was saying. I am shocked by the repeat Sicilian. Absolutely. d6. And this is what was so... I mean, around here, you play d6, everyone can calculate b takes c, and if you take back, e5 falls. It's not so simple. And I'm about to take on d6 myself. But Magnus played very, very quickly in this part of the game.
I like this a lot. Knight e7, knight c6. This is a really nice maneuver.
Yeah, if takes, we were thinking either knight c6 or take back, but the idea of putting that knight on c6, it guards e5, he's going to play b4, so the knight guards all the loose pawns in the position, and meanwhile you take those two bishops, you castle, and you say that actually it's white who, although bringing the fireworks, bringing the surprise opening, didn't get anything from it. So queen e2, b4.
No rush to castle. He's going to put his knight on c6, protect his b pawn.
Yeah.
First, and
no rush here.
Yeah, get the pieces to the right squares. So b4, queen c4. Still played pretty quickly at this point, so
yeah,
reasonably both players were in their preparation, or at least Caruana.
Yeah, after queen c4, I mean, you're hitting this pawn, so it's a little hard to just castle. You would be down a pawn in these positions, and at this point, I don't think there's any need to do that. Queen a5 forces the issue with pawn takes pawn, and instead of knight c6 here, I think Magnus just played probably the best move in the position, bishop e6, which is a great move if the queen goes back. Then you can continue knight c6, castle, and I'm really liking these two bishops. Plus, you got a hanging bishop on a1.
d6 is not really considered a strong extra pawn because it has no support, and if black can castle and move the rook behind to the d file, there's a good reason to believe not only will that pawn fall, but when it does, well, black's space advantage everywhere else will yield an advantage.
Absolutely. So he basically does not want to play position with the queens on the board. So we get a forcing line here. Queen c7 takes knight c6, making sure to safeguard the e5 and b4 pawns. And I think this was maybe not the most critical moment, but definitely Fabiano had to make a decision here.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at this bishop on a1 and this knight on b1. They're not very impressive. The knight is essentially stuck, and the bishop has nothing to do except hit this pawn, which is well defended.
So let's say d3 if you play it naturally. d3, king d7, knight d2, rook a8. And we're just liking this for black. You're going to win the pawn back. You're going to have centralized king. You have the two bishops. Why can't you complain?
Yeah. No, this looks like something we would definitely expect Magnus to be going for. The theme seemed to be that as long as you're comfortable with the stigma of being down a pawn, once you get comfortable with that, you look at the position objectively, and it's really, really comfortable. Really comfortable. Magnus seemed to have the initiative, and that's where he likes to play. So he decided to go king d7.
What happens if b3?
For black?
Yeah, could black do b3 and then king d7, rook a8?
I think on b3, well, I guess I would expect
d4. And he's worried about the center.
It starts to get annoying. You've got moves like knight d2 and d5 happening. And
I wasn't totally sure. It's a funny position. Maybe it's just good for white. I was thinking with black, I'm going to put my bishop on c4, put my pawn on b5, put my king on d7. Yeah. But I think... Oh, see, that's why... yeah.
So that's why bishop c4 was not the choice of the world champion.
It gives up a queen on
it gives up a queen, which is why you won't see the world champion playing that. And we just thought we'd point that out as one of the critical variations
for sure
of this match. No doubt both players were spending 10 or more minutes calculating bishop c4. But it's kind of a complicated variation.
Just unfortunately,
seems
like it's a little bit of compensation.
A little compensation for the extra queen. Yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to take as black, but you have to. I would say that because taking or allowing white to take on b4 frees up the knight to develop a bit more. So not ideal, but
that's the logic for
an accurate move for Caruana to play.
Definitely. King d7 takes rook a8. Now this was a great move. It caused Fabiano to go in the think tank, for sure. And there are a few moves to consider here. Whether you develop the bishop to b2, which seemed like the weakest option because it gives a free tempo. b5 looked like a bailout option if you don't want to play bishop c3. And I think b5 we were looking at a position like this, and this is definitely a push for Magnus, no doubt. You got the two bishops, a slight imbalance here that means Magnus can play.
Squares d4, c4, b4. Black's king is closer to the center. Two bishops. You could make a case for this. Also, black could argue the same thing with rooks on the board. And I don't think Caruana want to sign up for just a slightly worse endgame.
No, that's for sure. So he played bishop c3, and
The
Magnus
one other move.
in this position. In this,
I was going to say that knight c3 doesn't work at all.
yeah.
Because of knight takes b4, and knight c2 is a threat. Knight d3, and
Well, the bishop's not hitting.
If black just wins the pawn back without compensation, even material, 2 bishops, big edge for black. So Fabi's got to be as annoying as possible here, and develop at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially the scary part about this is that we're saying it's around even, or Magnus has decent chances when he's down a pawn. So sure, if he equalizes material, then it can be really bad. Whether it was king to c7, king takes c7, or b5 first, I think we were essentially thinking of the move b5. It's one that you pointed out during the commentary. So let's look at d3, b5 essentially.
It was b5, and I was saying, hey, I'm not looking for immediate pawn. I'm just looking for really active pieces and making life difficult for white to proceed. So even white's up a pawn here, but it feels like black is up a pawn because black controls the center. He's got the 2 bishops. The knights can't move easily. Well, knight on d2 doesn't have a lot of squares. b4 is a target. If you give me a couple more moves, let's say, sure, I got f6 or h6 is an option. It's just where do we go? We can't play d4. d3 is a weakness. The bishop on c3 has to be protected. And even though I don't have a clear plan as black, I'm going to target b4. I'm just going to maximize. It just seemed like white's lacking space here.
Yep. The type of position that
at least full compensation.
Yeah, you don't.
Which is all I need to know.
You don't go for it because you're winning your pawn back. This is the other way of gaining compensation, where you take the material deficit and you make it up for the active pieces and whatnot. So b5 was probably our main other consideration in this position. But king b6 was also a move we looked at, which was very appealing, just sprinting up the board and using the king as an active endgame piece, which is the main difference between the two positions.
And this is maybe what we consider the critical move of the game for Caruana.
I think so. I think this...
Facing a very bad position here in case he were to continue with, let's say, knight bd2 developing. We thought king b5 and rook a3 could happen, rook d8 could happen, rook a2 could happen. We have the same conditions as last time, except black's king is more active and putting more pressure on b4.
Yeah.
This just like you're going to lose d3 or b4. It's just inevitable.
The last time the pawn and the king were switched, but this is obviously a much better version for Magnus. And this knight, just importantly, the reason you want to develop it is because you haven't been able to move it all game, which has been frustrating. But this is not the way to develop it because there's no interesting squares to move to after knight bd2. So king b6, bishop d2. This was an
very impressive
move. Probably the most important move that he had to find. Knight d2 didn't look good. You have to establish that all your pieces coordinate a lot better by playing bishop e3 and knight c3 rather than bishop c3 and knight d2. So identifying that and then realizing that even maybe at the cost of a pawn, this is the maneuver you need to make. I thought that was very resourceful by Fabiano, and probably after this, I don't think he was too concerned making a draw, let's say. So bishop d2, rook d8 was probably the main move that we considered. Hitting the pawn, very logical.
Especially with the d file, now the bishop's in the way.
Yeah. No, this made a lot of sense. There's no way to defend it very nicely. You're not going to play a move like rook e3, for example. And after bishop e3,
this was interesting for me.
King b5.
Yeah, bishop e3, we knew what Fabiano was going to do.
Right.
He wants to develop his knight to c3, put his bishop on e3. Here Magnus has a few choices. He has knight d4, king c7, and king b5. And king b5 is what happened. King c7, I still need to be convinced. I thought this might keep more play because both b4 and d3 are hanging. And I was thinking that, let's say a position like this. Well, my king might have gone backwards but I'm ready to go forwards again.
Yes.
Like I'm still within range of picking up that pawn as more pieces get traded off. I'll feel once confident. Like it's like I'm pretending to retreat. I'm not actually retreating.
Yep.
I'm letting you overextend a little bit. And so that's what I was considering here. And then the other move would be just to do this.
You're like a bobsled team.
Yeah.
They take a few steps back for the run back, and then they thrust forward. So I think that's what we're seeing here.
This was an option. Instead, Magnus chose something differently, but potentially this is, if you want to prolong the game, you have to consider these moves. So if we go back a few, rook, bishop d2, rook d8, bishop e3 check. There's also just knight d4, knight d4 as well. So let's say knight d4, knight c3, because that knight is pinned. Maybe this is, we can't move our king forward at all, so this may have been a little annoying for Magnus to deal with. That knight's pinned, and
maybe the knight comes into c5.
Maybe the knight comes into c5. White's making a little bit of progress. So he went for king b5 instead.
Yeah.
It may have played differently there.
Maybe king c7, but again, this is sort of, not that these moves are much better than what Magnus played, but they keep a little bit more in the position. And I guess that's been the theme for the whole match, is there's always been situations where we felt like there were moves to keep playing, but they were never really selected by either player.
Right. So it depends how Magnus was feeling about those, or he thought it was even worth it to try that. So instead, king b5, and now this is very forced.
Yeah. I actually thought that king b5 was surprising, not just because it didn't leave as many chances, but the entire thing seemed forced. So you really take the pressure off Fabiano. I think as white, once you calculate this, of course, you're forced to take. King a6 is just nonsense. You're going to get mated there. Taking on b4. Knight d5 check is a really nice touch. And the king basically is going to get stranded if you don't take this knight. And I think a little optimistic to start going forward. So you got to take. And no matter if you move the knight or take the pawn, this check is going to happen. And all of a sudden, well, personally, I like Magnus's position, Fabiano's position around here, because it's actually Magnus who might end up a pawn, but roles reverse. Suddenly, he has to be a bit accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes, check.
I mean, it's really the queen side pawn, this b pawn. This is a great exchange for Fabiano because his pieces on the king side are ready to deal with something on the king side. His bishop there, his knight's there, his king is there. It's that outside pass pawn that dictates how I probably look at his position, and Caruana trading those off really, really alleviates a lot of the long-term pressure from CARLSEN, because he didn't have the pieces to necessarily deal with the queen side. On the king side, he's well placed here.
Yeah, and every time you get the pawns all on one side of the board, the drawing chances go up significantly. So think around here, knight d8, one of the main moves here to just deal with the f7 pawn being attacked. And here, Fabi played king f1.
Nice move.
King f1, just a quality move there. A lot of ways to embarrass yourself here.
Yeah, sets up some tricky checkmates after e4, knight e1 mate. It removes back rank threats from black.
Yeah.
Black being able to play rook d1, no more. And prepares to bring the king towards the center, which is what you strive for in the endgame. If black's king wasn't on d3, White would be playing king e2 next, supporting the two minors in front. So just a very natural, calm move, demonstrating that he wasn't really thinking about recuperating the pawn right away. It was just, your pieces are all passive as black. I'm good.
He wasn't in a rush. This king placement, although it's active, there's nothing in White's position to actually threaten to attack. So it's actually black who has to be probably more careful with these pawns all potentially weak. Very strong rook, and the knight on d8 not terribly well placed. So h5 is actually probably a pretty key move, stopping at g4.
So why is it important to stop g4?
Well, let's play h6, let's say.
Okay.
Because that also seems to make a lot of sense. If White gets in this move g4, we were talking about, well, if you play e4, you might get embarrassed with this checkmate. Well, in this position...
Even if you don't play e4.
Yeah, even if you don't. As soon as I cover this square, you have to realize that's your exit. That's how you get out. So after g4, suddenly black is in pretty serious trouble. Like king e4, you can play a move like king e2, and There's all sorts of...
or threatening rook c4 or knight d2. The king cannot go to f5. So some mating nets. And again, black is still a little passive there with the knight on d8. So the player, Magnus here, decided, no, not worth it to try to even entertain the thought of pushing this extra
getting mated at the very end of the game. Not worth it. So after king e4, knight g5, basically just mass exchanges. And after g4, nothing. Magnus is not going to take the pawn, but
king e6, defending the bishop, even material.
Just 2-on-2. That's going to be a draw there. So that's basically all we got for round 5 between Fabiano Caruana and Magnus Carlsen. Important to note that tomorrow is after tomorrow's game, it's basically going to be the halfway point of the tournament. Another important thing to note is that there are 2 whites coming up for Magnus Carlsen in a row, so we'll see how Fabiano deals with that.
Push him, baby.